Takes one hell of a storyteller to make me give a damn about a shoe. What is going on, guys? Welcome to my review of the new film Air, directed by Ben Affleck. And this is one of the bigger surprises of the year because it kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of us. And I am somebody that I absolutely love Ben Affleck as a filmmaker. One of my favorite working directors today. Of all of the things that I love about his short run as Batman, and even a lot of things that I wish he got to continue further to see, the one thing that I hated about his run of Batman is that it took him away from directing films to where we had to wait a long ass time to get a follow-up to things like The Town and Argo and Live by Night, which I'm a bigger fan of than most people. So when I initially heard about this film, saw the trailer about Nike trying to, no pun intended, court Michael Jordan and create what became the Air Jordan, the most popular and biggest selling shoe in history, inherently, that is not a story that interests me too much, but you put this cast in there, you say that Ben Affleck's directing it, and suddenly my ticket is bought for the very first showing available. And what can I say? There's no reason to ever distrust Ben Affleck in the director's chair at this point. He delivered yet another fantastic movie into his filmography, and a movie that I will be surprised if it does not end up in my top of the year list.
My name's Sonny Vaccaro. I'm with Nike.
Do you typically make it a habit of showing up at people's front doors unannounced?
I don't like to take no for an answer.
Oh, man, here we go.
So starting off with the positives, right out of the gate, I have to say very clearly that I am not a sports fan. I do not enjoy watching sports. I do not enjoy talking sports. I don't even enjoy hearing people talk about sports. It's a level of annoyance that has reached that level with me. But I love a good sports movie. There is a lot of fantastic stories to be told, both fictional and non-fictional, in the world of sports, many of which are completely enlightening to me because I don't follow the shit, and so there's many stories out there that are told that I would have never experienced otherwise if a movie did not tell me that story. And so where on the surface, just the creation of the Air Jordan shoe is not necessarily an inherently interesting story, there's so many more layers to it that this movie delivers in a very brilliant way. This is a very classic underdog story, which is a very tried and true formula to have in a sports film, but very similar to the movie last year with Adam Sandler, Hustle. It's a very non-conventional underdog story, to where this is not just about a smaller teammate or a team that's kind of, on the down and they're not really have a whole lot of fandom or people believing in them that now have to rise up and win the big game by the final act. This is about a company that at the time, during the actual story that they are presenting, was not the Nike of today. They were actually, at best, maybe the third biggest shoe producer out there, while also telling the story of Sonny, Matt Damon's character, a guy that is trying to get that big thing to put Nike on the map. Also telling the story of Michael Jordan, who has gone on, as we all know, to be arguably the most celebrated sports hero of all time. And so many different layers of an underdog story here, to where you're rooting for a multi-million-dollar company, you're rooting for this guy played by Matt Damon that's trying to finally make his big decision that's actually going to be this career win, also rooting for Michael Jordan and the Jordan family by the end of it. And so for somebody that does not give a fuck about sports, this movie made me give a fuck about sports. And that is about the biggest acclaim I can give to a sports film. And I really appreciated how this movie used a lot of our modern day knowledge against us as we are experiencing this story. So I grew up always assuming that Nike was pretty much always the biggest shoe company. I mean, when I was a kid, that was the shoe you wanted to have if you wanted to be the cool motherfucker in class. I had one pair of Nikes in my life, We didn't have the most money growing up, so it was a very big deal that my parents got me a pair of Nikes that year. Michael Jordan, you always just knew him as the basketball hero. Nowadays, it's like, is it Jordan? Is it LeBron? And that will always be a big debate because Jordan just blew everybody's minds with everything this guy did in his career. And so many things throughout this movie where they're telling you the precursor to a lot of those legendary stories and legendary companies and legendary athletes, to where one little serious scene where somebody's making a decision or discussing something or pondering something, there'll be like a section of text that actually gives the modern day context to what they're talking about, where, for instance, there's a line that Ben Affleck's character, who is the CEO of Nike, says, where it's like, what's the most money we could make off of this Jordan shoe? Like, we've made like, 3 million off of our highest profiting shoe. What's the most we could make? And then you get like a text that's like, 150 million per year, every single year that the Jordan has been in production. And you're like, oh, good piece of information to have context for that scene. And it's things like that that I really appreciated about Affleck's direction here and the way that he approached this story to deliver it in such a different way, because we've all seen underdog stories. We've all seen sports films that deal with not only the athletes, but also the people behind the athletes. And pretty much always when there's modern day context to be given, it's usually in a montage just before we get to the end credits or during the end credits with like pictures of the actor stacked up next to the picture of the real life person. And they did it in a very non-conventional way here that actually added a lot of weight and a lot of emotional depth to some of the things that were going on in the movie that otherwise wouldn't have been as impactful in those actual scenes. This is a very, very well written script that moves at a really nice pace, has some extremely well written dialogue. This is probably the funniest movie of the year, and it helps that the cast here, for the most part, are all people that have dealt with comedy before. You got Chris Tucker, who I love seeing in a movie again. You get people like Jason Bateman, that has done phenomenal things both in comedy as well as drama. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have always had a really good sense of humor to them in certain roles. And so where a lot of the elements of this story, just about a company trying to get their big break and create a shoe, could have been very monotone and dramatic and maybe even melodramatic at times, but it's really funny and entertaining and has a really nice pace to it. And all of that credit's got to go to the writer. And for a movie that Ben Affleck himself did not actually write, he chose a damn good script to direct.
You would have to have a pretty compelling pitch.
I can tell them the one thing the other companies can't compete with. Our basketball division is terrible.
I do not love it.
And even just moving beyond their comedic timing, everybody in the film does a damn good job. Ben Affleck, a little bit of a smaller role, but they do a really nice balance of kind of playing up the goofiness of this real life character, this CEO, and some of his attire, and having a grape-colored Porsche. And at the same time, there's a bit of an endearing quality to him as this guy that built this company from the ground up and just doesn't quite know how to break through the next ceiling and has to put all of his trust into people that he doesn't necessarily have a very career-driven reason to trust because they haven't had any wins yet. Matt Damon is awesome, and it's cool to see him finally directed by Ben, something we've never seen before. Chris Tucker, very funny, also has done some really nice dramatic stuff here recently with things like Silver Linings Playbook, although that wasn't very recently. Jason Bateman, again, awesome as well. And Viola Davis, man, as somebody that is basically the entire figurehead of the Jordan family. There's a very solid creative choice here to not actually show Michael Jordan, which I thought was a very smart thing to do. She is the one making all the decisions for the Jordan family and pushing for Michael and fighting for Michael. And Viola Davis is just one of the best working actors today. And when she's not playing some nefarious role like Amanda Waller, she does such good stuff with dramatic work, and this is one of the best roles that she has done. Just really delivering that whole maternal quality to somebody that gives birth to somebody that is literally going to change the world, and she is the only person that knows it. And the way that her and Matt Damon's character connect on that fact was just some of the most endearing stuff in this movie. And finally, again, as somebody that doesn't really appreciate sports, somebody that really doesn't get anything out of sports, I left this movie actually feeling inspired. And that is something that I really enjoy when a movie can do, especially a sports film, because the best sports films always leave me feeling that way. Like, remember the Titans? I'm always pumped by the end of it, despite some of the sadness by the third act of that film. And here, having somebody that, just believes in something so strongly that he is willing to literally lay his career on the line and roll the dice on, as Matt Damon's character, even some of the other characters that are going against their better judgment to just believe in this guy's drive and in his inherent belief that Michael Jordan's going to change the world. Like I've already described, the scenes between him and Viola Davis and just believing in your kids, believing in a legacy, the whole element that comes in later on that I did not know about and was really appreciative of the movie enlightened me to, which is Viola Davis and her character of Michael Jordan's mother kind of really fighting to get athletes to get a piece of things that they are giving their likeness to and their name to, which is something that completely changed the sports industry and has continued to impact people's lives all the way to today. So many of those different elements, whether you're a business owner, whether you're somebody that's just a self-made guy, whether you're an athlete, or whether you're just a parent that has a kid that is showing so much potential in anything. The drive that these people had to make this one deal happen that completely impacted all of their lives, it was inspiring.
Air Jordan.
I don't know.
Seriously?
Maybe it'll grow on me.
Moving on to the negatives, and this is something that's really small. I don't even know if it should be negative or mixed. It just feels like something that I have to address because it is going to impact my overall score and my overall, I guess, feeling of this movie over time. Is that just inherently it's not a movie that I'm going to want to rewatch all that often. And I feel the same way about Argo. Argo is a brilliant movie that won an Oscar and was fantastically directed by Ben Affleck. And yet I will watch The Town, I will watch Gone Baby Gone, I might even rewatch Live by Night a dozen times before I revisit Argo. And while this is a damn good movie that I recommend everybody check out if you're interested in it, this is going to fall into that Argo category to where there's not really a whole lot of things I can point out about it as being flaws. It's a very well done movie that I highly enjoyed, but it's not one that I'm going to revisit, and it's not one that's going to work into my regular rotation of favorite movies that I'm going to be re-experiencing throughout my life. It's just kind of a one-and-done experience for me, most likely. So with all that being said, guys, if you're a fan of Michael Jordan, if you're a fan of Nike, if you're a fan of Ben Affleck, or you just like a good, solid sports story or an inspiring story, go and check this thing out. It is produced by Amazon, so I will imagine it's probably going to come to streaming sooner than later. So not a movie that merits a theatrical experience, but it's a movie that if you do drop the money for that experience, you're going to walk away happy. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Please click over here for all of my 2023 new release reviews so far. I'm also going to put my review of Live by Night, much older video, up there. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.